Welcome to video 4 of Module 1 and 2 for Investigating Science. Our do now for today's activity is I want us to brainstorm ways to manage the natural environment. So let's pause the video now to complete that activity. For today's inquiry question that we're looking at, we are going to have an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's perspective. And so to do that, you'll see up in the top right-hand corner that we have our capability icon. So we're looking at the different perspectives of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and the way that they used observation to develop their understanding of country and place. And we're going to specifically be looking at firestick farming and their knowledge about plants. To do that, we are going to create another response, and today we're looking at the assess scaffold. And we're going to have to be respectful in the ways that we portray this information. And I'm going to put this out there that I am not an Aboriginal elder, and nor do I hold this information. This information was sourced from the internet and from different activities that brought together Indigenous knowledge. However, the best place that we can go is to speak to Aboriginal people and their elders themselves and hear those stories from their storytellers. So when we talk about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives, we do need to understand that it is required for us to be respectful and deal with their information with integrity. And so when we look at the different perspectives, and as a science teacher trying to include and embed those perspectives into our lessons, we need to understand and respect and protect the knowledge of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. That Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have the rights to self-determination, and it is required for us to have ongoing consultation with the knowledge holders and keepers, custodians, and different stakeholders. There needs to be a reciprocity between education providers and communities, and that this information may not be relevant to your Aboriginal local community. So making sure that you consult with those local people to understand your local knowledge. That we have a commitment to long-term improving and a partnership between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and the land. And that we, throughout this video, and when we talk about Indigenous information, we're recognising the cultural and intellectual property that we're dealing with here. When we talk about firestick farming, we can see two different ways here. And there was a way that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people managed the natural environment. We now term it as backburning. And so it was a way for them to manage their environment. So fires naturally started, and they still do naturally start through lightning and other different environmental factors. And what the observations that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people made was that after times of fire, the plants regrew, and some plants actually needed fire for them to eject their seeds and therefore see the growth in their environment. And we now use this practice in our backburning today in order to hazard reduction burns, and it's to reduce the amount of scrub in our bushland to avoid fire starting. And the next part here is plant medicines. So on your Google Classroom, you'll find this document that was put together by a Year 12 student about the different plant medicines that are used by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And we can see here, this is just a few of the different chapters that we see the breakdown of these medicines for different reasons. Okay, it's important when we're looking at this is to also get the perspectives of different people in our class, and whether these natural medicines that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people used are similar to those used in other cultures, and whether they're still relevant to today's society. And then finally, we're going to use this assess scaffold here, and we can look at the advantages and disadvantages and therefore then make a judgment. When we talk about this information, we acknowledge that not all of it is freely available to us on the internet, and that these are told in stories and the knowledge sharing that happens between these communities. And so when we look at the observations that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people made, we acknowledge that their scientific skills were founded and founded our scientific investigations that we still undertake today. So, in terms of innovative ways of managing the natural environment, we're going to look at how observations were helpful in order for them to understand their country and their place. If we go back quickly, there's a link between the Firestick farming here, and plant medicines. And that an important part of that information was being able to understand the environment and the environmental cues that they would have observed throughout their times. So not all of these would have been present at every part of the year. So the idea of seasons and when things were going to be fruitful, and therefore when was the right time for them to perform firestick farming. Okay, and we still use those today. So there's a vast array of knowledge which is in our Indigenous population. So I encourage you to consult your local AECG for their information and see if there is someone who can share the knowledge for your the traditional owners of your land. So pause the video now to complete this and share your information with the class to make sure that everyone is looking at the observations and practices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And then finally, we're adding to our inquiry question log. So how does observation instigate scientific investigation, which we started in our last video, and we're going to add to that today using our understanding of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people.